Hello and welcome to my second video of lists in Python. So today what we are going to do is we are going to see how we can use the built-in functions of the list methods. We are also going to see how we can copy list as arguments to function and the list manipulation part. So to begin with, let's quickly have a recap of what we have done in our previous video. Let's assume a list 1 having elements 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Now, how is this list represented in Python? First of all, list is an ordered sequence. It can store one or more elements of different data types. Lists are mutable sequences in Python. We can modify the elements of the list in place. And if we wish to access the elements in the list, we need to use the indexing. So this was given in the introduction video. Now let's move on to the next part of it. Now before we move on to the functions that are available to us for the list data type, we need to understand what is meant by indexing. So as you know, indexing is used to access elements in the list, just like we have been using indexing in the other data types, that is string and tuples. Now index is basically what? In Python, any particular element of list is represented internally through an index, and index ranges start from 0. That means the first element of the list will be given index value as 0, and it will range from 0 to n minus 1, where n is the length of the list. So suppose we have 10 elements in a list, so the index value of the last element will be 10 minus 1, that is 9, since it starts from 0. Let's have a look at one of the examples. So list 0 will represent the first element of the list, and list n minus 1 will represent the last element of the list. List indices are always given in square brackets. Now there are two types of indexing which are available to us. One is known as the forward indexing. The other one is known as the backward indexing. The backward indexing, it starts from right to left. So the backward indexing uses the negative index ranges. That means it starts from -1 and it goes up till -n. So if we start our index values from the back, that is, then the first element from the right will be given the index value as -1. So list -1 here will represent the last element of the list, and similarly list -n represents the first element of the list. So moving on to the most important topic, that is the built-in methods that are available to us which can be used with lists, and these functions are: the first function is index, the second function remove, extend, insert, append, length, count, pop, reverse, and sort. Now let's have a quick look at what is the use of these functions. So let's assume we have two lists. List 1 is 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. It is having elements of integer type, and list 2 also has elements of integer type. Let's take the example of list 1 and list 2, and let's see what is the purpose of our first function, that is index. So index function, basically it returns the index value of the item, the element that is passed. So as we were discussing, list 1 dot index will return the index value of the element that is passed to it, and that is 1. Coming to the next function, that is remove. Now we are going to pass the element to this function, and that particular element will be removed from the list. So if I pass an element as an argument to this function, it is going to remove it from the list. If we try to print the list, you will see that the new list will not have the element. So this is where it is proof that lists are mutable. You can add and remove an item from the list. The next function is extend function. Now herein what we can do is we can join the two list elements using the extend function. We can write list1.extend and pass this list which we want to concatenate as an argument to the function. So just assume I have a list 3, which has elements 2 and 4. If I would wish to concatenate it with the list 1, so what I need to do is I need to write list1.extend list 3, and if I try to print the output, you will see that the elements are added at the end of the list. Next, moving on to the function insert. Now what is this function going to do? Let's suppose I wish to insert an element over here in the middle of the list. So this is possible with the insert function. Herein I need to give the index value where I would like to insert the element. So the first argument is the index. The second argument is the element that you wish to insert over there. So if I wish to do that, I need to write list1.insert 2, 20, and then I can print my list. In case if I wish to add only one element towards the end of the list, I can use the function called as append. So herein what I have done, I have taken list 1, I have used append function, and I have passed one element to it, and finally when I try to print, you will see that 120 is added to the list. I can find the length of my list using the len function. Herein the argument to the len function is the list itself. So if we have considered this list, the total length of the list is 5 and the output given will be 5. Now to count the occurrence of a particular item, the number of times the item is present in the list, we have the count function. You simply need to pass the item or the element, whatever you call it, to the count function as the list, and you will see that the number of times that particular item is present will be shown as the output. Now, in case if I wish to remove an element of the list, if I wish to provide the index number, using the index number I would like to remove the element, I can use the pop function. So pop function by default will remove the last element. Pop function by default removes the last element of the list. In case if you wish to remove any particular element, you can provide the index number over here. The reverse function is going to print the elements of the list in reverse order. But herein what we need to see is the original list is not changed. In case if we wish to change the order of our list, we need to put it in ascending or descending order. What we can do is we can write, you make use of the sort function. So herein I have taken the example of second list, that is list 2. I have used the sort function, and if I wish to print it, you would see that the new list will now have the items listed in arranged in sorted order. It definitely creates a new list over there. So these were some of the built-in functions. Now in case if I wish to make a copy of the list and assign it to another list. So what do I need to do in that case? Let's assume we have list 1. It has elements 1, 2, 3. We have another list 2, and we assign list 1 to list 2. So list 1 will get copied to list 2. If I wish to print list 1, I will get the output 1, 2, 3, and again if I wish to see the output of the elements that are there in list 2, I can get the same number of elements. Now herein what I need to understand is one of the most important facts, that in case if I make any changes to the list, the original list, that is list 1, I appended element 10, it will be added at the end. But the same changes will be reflected to the second list which I have copied the elements. This is because Python points the copied list to the same original list. The statement list2 is equals to list1 does not create a new list. Rather, it just makes list1 and list2 refer to the same list object. So the address of list1 is pointed out by list2. So list2 actually becomes an alias of list1. So any changes made to either of them will be reflected in the other list. Now, since we have done some of the functions, we are going to do some other functions which are very, very important over here. Let's quickly do a recap of length function. It returns the length of the list passed as the argument. Now, there is one more important function which is called as the list function. Now, herein, if you would notice, the len function and the list function, we do not use the syntax as list1 dot function name. Herein, the function name is coming prior and the list is being passed as the argument. In case if we wish to create a empty list, so what we can do, we can use the list function. This is also called as a constructor function. Take a variable name and assign the constructor to it. A new empty list will be created for you. I can also create a list in a different manner. I can take up a variable. It can consist of a string of characters. For example, I've taken str1 over here. I can pass this str1 as the argument to the list function, and the elements will be transferred to this particular list1, which is being assigned through the list function, list constructor. Now, since we have learned about a few functions, if we wish to check how these functions actually work, we'll be taking an example. But before we take an example, I would like to highlight over here a few examples of forward and backward indexing so that it is easy for us to find the output. Now, let us assume we have a list, my list, and it has elements Java, C++, Python, VB, VC++, PHP, C# as a string of values. Now, if I wish to assign index value to these list elements, if I take a forward indexing that goes from left to right, we'll see that the index value of Java will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 subsequently for C#. If I take a backward indexing, it starts from -1. We go to -2, -3, -4, -5, -6 and -7 for the last element, that is n minus n. So, assuming that this is my list over here and I write this print mylist.pop. Now, what is going to happen in this case? In this case, you will see that the output that will be given on the screen is, since the pop element will remove the last element by default, my new list will contain Java, C++, Python, VB, VC++ and PHP. These elements. If I execute this command, what is going to happen? In my list, COBOL will be added, and this is what is going to be shown on the screen. If I try to calculate the length of my list, then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 elements, and the output will be 7. If I wish to insert an element at a particular position, so before we do that, let's take a put the index values and see where the new element will be put. So as you can see, it is written 3. So this will be shifted back. Here basic will be added and my new list is now going to have Java, C++, Python and basic, and then VB, VC++, PHP and C#. So this is how my output is going to be displayed on the screen. If I give this command mylist.sort, you will see that the elements will be sorted on the basis of in alphabetical character in ascending order, and since it is a list of string values, it will be in alphabetical order. So now if I wish to calculate the index of PHP, so if the list is sorted, it is going to be different, but if it is in this original form, you can see the index is 5. In the original form, index will be 5. After adding basic, it is going to be 6. So if these commands are executed in sequence one after the other, the output definitely is going to be different. So we have to calculate as per the sequence only, since we are going to execute it as a program. So herein the PHP again could change if it is sorted in alphabetical order. Moving on to the aggregate functions. Aggregate functions, they work on a group of data. So herein we have 3 aggregate functions which can be used with the list. The min, which will return the minimum or the smallest element of the list. So you will see that in Python with the list data type, you do not have to write a program to find the minimum value. You just write min and you give list1 as the argument or the name of the list and you get the output. Similarly, we have the max, which is going to return the maximum or the largest element of the list. And we also have a very important function over here, which is sum. So this function returns the sum of the elements of the list, and if we assume a list1, we will get this value. So this was all about the functions. Now the next topic that we are going to cover is how can we pass function as an argument to the list. So let's see how we can write a program in Python to find the sum of even numbers given in a list using a function. Herein what we are going to do, we assume that there is a list variable list1 and it has these elements. So how do we go about writing a program in Python, and how can we pass list as a function, list as an argument to a function? So to write a program, the first and the foremost thing is that you need to create variables. You need to first think of the identifiers, where all the data is going to be stored. The second step is what processing is required. Here I am trying to find the sum of even numbers. So I'm trying to find the sum. So I need to think about the task in my mind. The task could be finding sum of numbers. It could be finding even numbers. It could be finding the length of the string. So the task is to be kept in mind. Next, if the task is repetitive or condition based, so how many times the task is to be executed or any condition to be checked. So accordingly, we need to frame an algorithm for that. Now here what I need to do is find the sum of even numbers. To write a program, since I said the first step is to create variables for the task, let's assume that we have a list ABC and it consists of these elements. It is a predefined list. And we now need to find the sum of elements. For that, I will write a function. How do I write a function in Python? I need to use the def keyword, the name of the function, and then pass the list as the argument over here. So since I need to find the sum of the elements, so initially I can assume that the sum of the elements is 0. So I have used one identifier. This is the second identifier. Then I need to access each and element of the list. So first it is going to be 10, then it is going to be 22. So I have to keep on adding my elements and I will have to store it in a new variable. So for that, what have I done? I've taken sum variable. I will keep adding the sum of the elements in sum. So initial value is going to be 0. Since I have to pick up each and every element of the list, I will be using the in operator and I use I as my counter variable over here. So for I in ABC using the for loop, what do I do is initially I will have sum equals to 0 and then I'm going to take the first index value from here, that is in the first, using the first index value I will access the element 10. Since ABC I in the first place it is going to be 0, so I is going to be 0 and sum is also going to be 0 over here. What will be the output of this particular statement? This particular statement is going to give me the output 0 plus 10 since I'm accessing the value, and now I will have 10 in sum. So this is how my task is being executed, but once the task is over, the output that will be shown will be sum of list values sum. So till the time all the elements are accessed, they are put in sum every time. Once all the elements are accessed, the loop will stop after that, and finally the sum of the values will be printed. Let's quickly have a look. Let's assume that these are the values of the list, and this is what is going to be internally done by the program. This is called as the dry run of the program. Let's have a quick look. If at all the first value of the sum is given as 0, value of I is going to be 0, the element access is going to be 10, and the first value that sum gets is 10. 0 plus 10 will make it 10. Now the next value that sum has is 10, sum variable. I will change to 1, the element access will be 22, and since initial the change in the value of sum is now 10, 10 will be accessed and it will be added, new element will be added to it. This particular process goes on till the values of the list get exhausted. So this is how we write a program in Python. We can pass the list as an argument to a function. Herein we just need to note one thing, and that is when we are passing list as an argument to a function, there are two scenarios. Elements of the original list may be changed. Changes made to the list in the function are reflected back in the calling function. So any changes that are made to the list inside the function, they will be reflected back in the calling function. So this was all about list manipulation in Python. Do like and subscribe the video. Thank you.